Hey guys, and welcome to the Movie Club Emporium to our May monthly hangout. And this is going to be a fun one because this is ended up being quite the nostalgia bomb. But we were talking about 90s virtual reality movies. Oh, what a time when we were just in fear of our lives that this little thing called virtual reality and artificial intelligence would take over the world. What fools we were. But
Yeah, I
more.
don't think it was. I don't think it was going to happen with the 128 megabyte hard drives of 1995 and the Wii computers. And I mean, watching these movies, getting wow, have they aged immensely?
All right, yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun to talk about, and welcome all of you who are here. Uh, we do these fun live hangouts every single month here on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/the Movie Club Emporium. And if that's not enough for you, you can also join us over at our YouTube channel at the Movie Club Emporium. And we are currently sitting at 40 subscribers over on our YouTube channel. And here's the thing, once we get over 50, we can live stream there as well. So it'll actually be in both places. But if you'd rather hang out on YouTube, all you got to do is help share, like and subscribe and share and all that fun uh, stuff that you have to say. Otherwise, nobody watches your stuff. Uh, Speaking of, there's our current review that went up last week is the new Mission Impossible movie. I reviewed that movie. Spoiler free. So if you haven't gone to see it yet, you should because, like I say in that video, this is the seventh or eighth Mission Impossible movie, and quite honestly, the quote unquote worst one, still kind of awesome. So, what a weird franchise to actually be kind of great.
29, if I'm not mistaken, that franchise has been going for 29 years.
Yeah.
I believe the first one dropped in 1996. I can't believe it is 2025 and we're just now ending the Mission Impossible franchise with the same actor and the same character in every movie.
Yeah.
That's honestly impressive.
Next, and we'll talk. If you stick around to the end, I'll let you know what we're talking about tomorrow if you're watching this live. But right now, again, we're plugging all this stuff. And so, with that being said, how's it going?
Doing all right. Went and did some overtime today and went to the gym and ran around. It's been a pretty wild day, but nice to sit to just sit down here in my spare bedroom, surrounded by my pre-recorded VHS tapes and other various things, and talk about movies with you. Nice change of pace
Yes.
today. How about you?
Yes. Good. Amber and I hung out. I think is he in the chat? Ben. Um, I want to say if he's not, if he pops in here later, watched your video today, and I want to say that I was a little nervous because we were talking about John Carpenter's Village of the Damned, and I don't know if we ever get to it on a actual live hangout. I kind of love that movie, flaws and all. So I was a little worried when we got started, but I agree. It was a really fun video. So if you haven't checked out his stuff as well, his 3 minute movie reviews. I wish I could not ramble enough into 3 minutes, but here we are doing these long lives.
Yeah, Ben isn't able to join us tonight, but yeah, I've really enjoyed his stuff, and it's nice to hear a positive opinion on the Village of the Dam remake, which I remember being absolutely trashed when it came out and just generally shit upon all these years. But I'm with you. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, it's super fun.
I think
Uh,
I, I think we at some point we should do the lesser Carpenter movies or the ones that have a reputation for being worse, like Village of the Damned, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, uh, Starman, and a few of the others that you just generally don't think of as much of being Carpenter movies. So anyway, We'll get to that one of these days.
I'm gonna check in here with the chat. It's glad to see you guys here. Uh, Good to know that Nick is a doctor.
Hey, everybody.
What's the best thing about Oklahoma? Um, ooh, I mean, Brahms for the most part has good ice cream.
I'll say this: people in Oklahoma are generally very nice. Very friendly, welcoming place. I'm always reminded of Oklahoma hospitality anytime I go down there. About 2 months ago for a funeral, and it always warms my heart to see how welcoming and friendly everybody is down there. I mean, there's dicks there, of course, because there are anywhere, but generally nice people.
It is
But
weird that as small of a state as it is, it's divided very clearly into like three separate states. Because like you have Western Oklahoma, which is very different from like Central Oklahoma, which are both completely different from Eastern Oklahoma. It's weird
yes,
that they're all so different.
Oklahoma is definitely not a monolith. There's a lot of surprising amount of variety in there.
Yeah. So good luck with your report. All right, so I guess we can get started here. I figured the easiest way to do these was just to do them in release order. Um, and so by virtue of that, the first movie, which surprised me when I figured out this was the first one released in 19, it was released in I think June of 1992. Don't call it Stephen King's because he will sue you into oblivion. The Lawnmower Man. Uh, Now I watched the director's cut of this movie, which is don't think it was available until Scream Factory released it, and then now I think if you get it on Amazon or on Prime, that's the one you can get both versions, but that's the one I watched. Um, but yeah, like we were talking before we went live, this is a movie that I think we talked about. Um, like I feel like everybody's talked about this movie, but we actually never sat down and watched it growing up.
No, for some reason we always, despite the fact that it's, I don't know, inspire it. The only thing it shares in common with the Stephen King story at all is the title, and there's a lawnmower in it. That's about it.
Yeah,
Um, you would think it would have been one we watched, and we just kept on passing it up all those years growing up. And I'm not sure why, because it seems like something we would have watched.
yeah, even out of just like curiosity, like we stumbled upon it. Yeah, I guess so. Like the briefest of histories is it was based on a pre-existing script. Uh, New Line Cinema owned the title for the Lawnmower Man, so they made sure that there is a scene where a gentleman is eaten by a lawnmower, which is in the short story, which is as goofy, and we'll get into it as this movie is. If you've never read the original short story of the Lawnmower Man, buddy, buckle up because it's just like it's pure. What are we doing, Steven? Um,
It's
involves
wild. It's wild and gross, and said nothing to do with VR or AI or nothing, nothing.
nothing, not at all. So did you know? Did you what version of this movie did you watch? Because I guess there is a lot of difference. Um,
I watched whichever version was on Amazon Prime.
okay,
I wasn't aware there were multiple versions, or else I probably would have tracked one of them down. I just watched normal theatrical cut.
okay. So the main difference is the stuff with the monkey is wildly different in the director's cut. that monkey gets it hardcore in the director's cut. And then like a little, of course, a little bit of the sleaze, but not a whole lot. Um, it's mostly just in the what's the monkey's name? Not something man or whatever he calls him. Uh,
Cybo Man. Cybo Man.
Cybo Man. All right, so this movie is it's essentially uh, Flowers for Algernon, uh, with just like a dose of fear of computers and just that 1990s Jeff Fahey's in this movie, so we are gonna sleaze it up. And and Pierce, like prime cut beef Pierce Brosnan, who won't stop sweating and smoking throughout this entire movie. What did you think about Lawnmower Man for your first watch?
Uh, First of all, getting Prime Pierce Brosnan and a continuously shirtless Jeff Fahey, were they? It's like we got a VR horror movie for the dudes and some sexy Prime Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey. Pierce Brosnan with his shirt open and Jeff Fahey walking around shirtless with cowboy boots and jeans on. They were trying to branch out and get a wide audience. I don't really think it quite worked. Um, and to give you a brief synopsis of what the movie's about, Pierce Brosnan is a researcher looking into virtual reality. Works for this evil corporation, who turned out to be evil. It was telegraphed from 10 miles away, and he starts privately experimenting on this lawnmower man named Joe, played by Jeff Fahey. Using VR to teach him and giving him a nootropic drug. Not the kind that Joe Rogan was trying to sell you. Nootropic drugs is like nothing. Nobody ever heard of that. Now you see it on every ad, everywhere now. Uh, but not in 1992. So, and Job is a very simple-minded guy, raised by the local Catholic parish. Gets smarter and smarter, starts manifesting scary levels of intelligence and more and some supernatural abilities. So, science experiment gone awry, basically. Uh, Firstly, 1992, you get a lot of the CGI sequences in this movie, a lot of them. That was the big selling point. I remember the trailers for this and thinking I was blown away by the graphics and how they looked. But I mean, at this point, I was still playing 8-bit Nintendo, so I looked far more advanced. Have they aged poorly? Wow. This stuff is now laughable in retrospect, but it was just interesting to see at the time how cutting this was extremely cutting edge for 92. But the problem is, and this is the problem I think most of these movies on this list face of, they age instantly. They're instantly the technology instantly makes them age. 5 years after the Lawnmower Man, it already looked cheesy. That was in 1997. Uh, I think story's pretty, science project, people playing God and things go wrong. Nothing crazy there. One thing about this movie I think made it pretty, that it really did it for me, was Jeff Fahey. I really love Jeff Fahey as Job. Because Job is this simple-minded guy who's had a very tough life of abuse and being taken advantage of, and he really sells that. And you get to see him evolving and getting smarter or more self-sufficient to the point where he's a genuine threat, like a global threat. Uh, and I was pretty impressed how well he did at doing that. I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was in this movie. Pierce Brosnan, great as always, playing a much more manic character than the laid back guy he usually plays, but I dug it. Uh, anyway,
Yeah,
Crystal,
like you like
what are you thinking?
we had always skipped it, and it always had been like you skipped it because well the effects in it are terrible and they're not good. Um, I mean, for 1919, like you said, it instantly dates it. It's like booting up Turok now, and you're just like, what were we thinking? Um, but yeah, Fahey, like especially when it first starts, like I was a little worried because I was like, oh man, are we gonna like simple jack this up? Surprisingly, don't. Although, man, 1990s, we were just throwing the R word around, and
Oh man.
that's all there was. You were either normal or you were that, and there was nothing else. No other spectrums to be on. And so that was rough here because you don't think about that much anymore. But yeah, it just what caught me for this movie was again just how good Fahey is, and the cinematography, like the use of colors when they wear the suits with the piping, the look of the lab. It's also like very classic '90s. I say, well, I probably more like '80s and '90s. And I love that secret government lab. It's the reason I like The Fly 2 more than I should. Like, just that whole like secret group. I love Pierce Brosnan. I've discovered through watching stuff like this and probably my personal favorite Brosnan film, Livewire, which I still recommend we watch and review at some point. Or Nomads, like '90s Pierce Brosnan, like pre Bond Pierce Brosnan was my favorite because he was really like, yeah, I'll be in your movie. I'm gonna be I'm kind of smoke and be like just shirtless and wet to the entire thing. And then you just forget, Jeff Fahey. I love the amount of '90s sleaze he brings to this movie. It's the same thing in the movie Body. Have you ever seen Body Parts? Like she's
No.
just he's just it's just a simple horror movie, but there's just this like extra element of just like Cinemax sleaze that he brings to those characters. Like I love it, and it probably shouldn't work. I think it does work because you get to see kind of this corruption of the innocence in a way. I like all the VR stuff. It looks terrible, but the imagery that is made while terrible is still very like memorable. Like the lawnmower eating the guy's brain, and um, watching Jeff Fahey's head at the very end, which is just a giant golden head, uh, killing dudes. I had a lot of fun with it. I did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. Um, Thankfully, because I'm not a super glutton for punishment, we did not touch that sequel, which is just supposed to be almost unwatchable. Um, Maybe someday.
Hey, yeah, Lawnmower Man 2, Job's War, or Beyond Cyberspace, depending, is legendary for being bad. They could get nobody back for the second one. So Job was played by Matt Frewer and looked completely different. And it, it bombed heavily. And I'm sure has aged even more poorly because the things that made this movie good, I'm sure, are completely absent in the second one. Um, if you can get past how hokey the CGI looks, and some of the some of the story and premise being a little bit on the generic side, I think it's a pretty enjoyable movie. You actually feel for the characters. Uh, I felt terrible for what happened to the chimp, and just you're wanting things to be okay for the people, even though you know it's not going to be okay. Uh, Let me tell you, you get a prime Jenny Wright from Near Dark fame, and she is hot as the sun in this movie. This is
Whew.
very hot cast in this movie. I'm with you. I love the government facility. I think they did a bang up job with a lot of the sets and scenes they shot in this movie. It's a lot more polished and well put together than you would think a movie called Lawnmower Man would be. But overall, I think it works for the most part. You'll just have to look past how 1992 it is.
And even that, I feel like it. because it is so much that time, it does skate by on its nostalgia of that graphical era. So like, even though it looks terribly 1992, like it's still kind of like charming for night because you think back to 1992.
The
uh
magical time where technology was just computers and everything was just a massive mystery. We thought our toaster was going to rise up and kill us.
Surprisingly, the movie to come out a year after that. Speaking of effects, we'll get into it. Another movie that I think I saw the commercial for the trailer for 1,000 times, whether it be on that Blood Dolls DVD that you had, or just when we would rent a Full Moon movie that had the video zone at the end. It's 1993. It's Full Moon's Arcade. And this movie has a who's who of, hey, I remember that guy from 1992. You get Peter Billingsley. So if you ever wondered what awkward teenage Ralphie from the Christmas Story looks like, um, John Delancey, Q from Star Trek Next Generation, a very 1990s Seth Green, and AJ Langer, who I know has been in some great stuff. Unfortunately for me, my first exposure to her, and so therefore she will always be a lot of vagina from Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. And directed by Albert Pune, who we were talking about again before we went live, made some of the best and worst movies from our childhood that I can remember us watching. I wrote a small list here, and like he has like hundreds of titles. But the big ones I wrote: Cyborg, the Jean Claude Van Damme movie; Doll Man, which is a movie club classic; Captain America 1990. Again, I'm like I said earlier, the first time I remember watching the movie was Nick's VHS of it. Heat Seeker, which I have planned for a review later on at some point. I can't remember. I think it's later on this year. And the Nemesis series, which at least the first two are really kind of fun. Albert Pune could get a lot out of like a gravel pit when it came to making movies. He also made Sword and Sorcerer. Um, and so here's what I was talking about, Nick. So I was sitting here, I was looking at all these movies he'd made, and I was like, man, we could do a whole live about Albert Pune movies. And then I was like, but there's so many. So copyright Movie Club Emporium, uh, just in case. I say there's all these very, very niche specific podcasts, whether it's like Talking Simpsons or, every TV show has a podcast. There's even a podcast. I think they're going through like Paul Verhoeven's movies, like minute by minute style. I say we do one for Albert Pune, and we call it Chasing Pune.
Okay. That is a deep well. As I was pointing out to Jason, he had 5 movies come out in 1996 alone. The dude worked nonstop to very mixed results. Kind of like Arcade. Okay, I don't remember the life of me what movie it was. I think it may have been Robot Wars, one of the Full Moon movies I owned growing up. I saw this trailer for Arcade a lot, and man, did it have me interested. The moratorium on R-rated movies in my house, I was never able to watch it. We didn't have a copy locally, so I wasn't able to see it. So finally, at the age of 40, I was able to see Arcade for the first time. Um, Basically, the on a nutshell, this bunch of kids likes going to this arcade. They're video game nuts. This arcade called Dante's Inferno, where these guy who's putting together this game and promoting it, along with some technicians who are wearing lab coats for some reason. or it sounds like their beta test zone for this new cutting edge VR game called Arcade. Very creative title. And they're, of course, blown away by the graphics, and they are all handed a home version where they can take home and play it at home. Well, there's a shocker. Video games actually super evil. People get sucked into it, and our hero, played by the adorable Megan Ward, have to go in and shut down Arcade and rescue their friends. And like an episode of Nick Arcade come to life, they get stuck in there and are fighting things against the green screen. What do you think of Arcade, Jason?
So last night, you and I had a brief conversation, um, and you said to me that one of these movies was surprisingly way more messed up than you thought it would be. And so I'm going to use my guess to say it was this movie because
Hands down.
on that premise, you're like, okay, like it's not something we haven't seen before. I will say this movie was made in the late '80s, but was, I guess, shelved uh, because they were threatened legal action by Disney. And a lot of the visual effects had to be redone. I couldn't tell you why, Tron, but yeah, like going into this movie, like you said, we'd seen the trailer a bunch. It looked like an episode of Nick Arcade where all the characters dressed like bobsledders. Uh, I was not expecting how messed up this movie starts, and then later on in the film, when that scene is used as kind of oh, thank goodness, we're all fine. Nope, you're secretly still in the Matrix, Neo. What? How freaking messed up and dark this some of this subject matter stuff is. Holy cow!
Uh, so the movie starts out, Megan Ward's character, whose name is Alex, having a flashback to her mom committing suicide. Her mom's suicide, it's like they show the aftermath and they show it like later on in the movie, and it comes up. It's like Arcade messing with her using her mom's suicide. It pops up like a. This movie's less than an hour and a half long. It pops up like a lot, and there's her dealing with trauma from that. And I gotta throw this in to spoil it. That's not the only messed up thing in this movie.
Mm.
So Arcade actually has like a human soul inside of it, and it's the soul of a little boy whose mom beat him to death. It's just I wasn't expecting it to throw that kind of stuff at me, and it feels wildly out of place in this movie.
Yeah,
I
especially
don't
when
know.
it's just like like kids riding skateboards through like screensavers.
That's basically what it is. And they're traveling. There's these like I think there's 7 levels they have to get through to ultimately fight Arcade, who, let's remind you, is a small boy who died in a bout of domestic violence. And he's angry. That's why he was taking revenge. He's like, they're gonna have to play with me now. I don't know why they felt that. I don't know if Albert Pujon was going through something at the time. It just you're like, oh, goofy movie about kids sucked into a video game, and then it's like, oh, great suicide and child abuse. That's great. It is really jarring, and I can't lie, it sucks a lot of the fun out of this movie. There's like, well, that's depressing. I don't know why they decided to go there in this kind of movie.
It's funny too because I'm sitting here watching. I'm thinking, well, I've never seen this, but I have seen Stay Alive, which is, uh, I want to say a better movie. The Frankie Muniz we play a haunted video game with Bloody Mary in it, and even that movie too has like this weird like. It should be a fun. Hey, we're playing a video game where you die, and if you die in the game, you die in real life. And then like it weirdly has all this real world trauma in it as well. I don't know why we can't just have a fun you die in the thing you die in real life movie without just like heaping all this like weird teen like afternoon special movie situations on you.
This should have been a fun, goofy, EG full moon horror movie. They actually had like a line of those, like pre-hysteria back in the '90s, and some of these that were more like teenagers from outer space. These kind of fun movies aim more at a younger audience, which was great. They were fun. That feels like that. This should have been that kind of movie, but instead they went really ridiculously dark with it, and it yeah, the parts where they're in the game, it's like fun in a early '90s kind of way. But why did they have to make this movie so depressing?
Oh, but that scene, the scene with again, I couldn't get over it. The scene where she has to relive her mom's suicide, and then her mom starts like talking to her, and she's like, "This you did this. It's your fault, but don't worry, um, you'll like it so much better when you're dead."
To talk her daughter into like committing suicide, and why? Why in this movie? Of all movies with a plot this goofy, with visuals this goofy, did they have to go? I'm not opposed to covering those subject matters in a movie. Arcade is not that movie.
No. It's yeah, like I said, especially with the teens that are in it. Um, when Seth Green is just running around being Seth Green until him and the other girl are weirdly zombies of the game at one point, which is kind of fun. Then he becomes goth Seth Green, um, which is I kind of feel like what should have happened when he turned into a werewolf on Buffy. Speaking of weird, fun things dealing with your parents' death. But yeah, like you said, this was just a weird. Like I was not ready for how serious this goofy looking, cheap, low budget should have been a schlockfest type of movie, but it was like, man, and, not only that, but I also watched the new the guys who made Talk to Me their new movie, so I'm just like, can I not with Teen Grief for this weekend? I'd appreciate to be done with the Teen Grief for a bit.
I I had a few decades worth of anticipation for Arcade. I went in pretty reasonable expectations. It threw me for a loop. Albert Pion put out a lot of shitty movies, and Arcade is one of them. But you know what is surprisingly not a shitty movie? Our next movie, in my opinion, at least. I don't. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you probably agree with me on this. Going back into the realm of gaming and horror, we have Brain Scan from 1994.
Yes. So I do want to pop in here to see what's going on real quick. Nick, they have exposed you. You are really Jamiroquai.
You got me. You just can't recognize me without my big furry hat. That's all.
Yes, and yes, they you did recognize the backdrop here is the virtual. It's virtual insanity. We're talking about virtual reality movies that sold itself. Um, if anything else, I needed a reason to think about that song again. Although I will say I listened to a surprisingly a lot more of Jamiroquai than you would have ever expected a teenage boy in the early 2000s to listen to, and it was mostly done with Nick. Um,
Yes, our mutual friend Matt recommended Jamiroquai to me, and I got an album, and I listened to Jamiroquai a lot. I really dug his music at that time.
and then, unfortunately, I will tell you no. The movie Staying Alive does not use Staying. Well, the movie's called Stay Alive. I may have misspoke. Staying Alive is the weird sequel to Saturday Night Fever, which is probably a movie we should talk about at some point. But Stay Alive is the video game. You die in the game, you die in real life. It does not use that song. This is a early 2000s, and so it is just chunka guitar, new metal. Frankie Muniz wearing a sideways visor, and Angelina Jolie's brother's in it. and so that's kind of like the biggest star they got. I will say spoilers if you thought that the way that the actor from This Is Us and Heroes, if you thought the way he died in This Is Us is sad, he gets it real good in that movie. Um, but otherwise, I don't necessarily recommend it. But yeah, so our next 1994 Brain Scan, and this was a first time watch for me. Like I remember again seeing the trailer all the time. Um, I was never a Edward Furlong fan, really. I mean, we all love T2, but even then, I kind of found him annoying. And then skipping from T2 to Crow Wicked Prayer, um, I did necessarily feel like I wanted to further my filmography on old Eddie Furlong. I'm really sad I missed this because this totally should have been like a movie we watched a ton in high school.
Absolutely. And so Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason come on the scene in the late 70s, early 80s. And for a long time afterwards, we had people trying to come up with the next horror icon. Um, and Brain Scan features one of those as T. Ryder Smith as the trickster. As what can become who would spark off another horror franchise or be somebody very recognizable, a character, a villain in the realm of horror. Um, Obviously, we only got one Brain Scan movie. It didn't quite work out, but that's a shame because I think it's a pretty great little movie.
Yeah, I actually wrote in my notes. I was like, could this be the best Freddy Krueger knockoff?
Yeah,
Um, I my only hesitance is because again a movie that we never watched in high school that I only recently discovered that I love is the Trick or Treat, the Sammy Kerr uh,
yes,
horror movie. But and like Furlong or not, I think he's kind of good in this movie for what he's
he
given.
is. So basic run. I'll throw a rundown on the plot in there. Edward Furlong is a young metalhead who's at home alone for a few days. He's got a best friend, or they're big into horror video games, and he manages to he hears about this game called Brain Scan. Gets it in the mail, pops it in, and it's promised to be this next level experience that uses the system kind of like hypnosis to kind of bring you into the world. And in the game, you're taking the perspective of a killer murdering somebody. Or Edward Furlong plays it, blown away by it. The next day, though, he finds out that the murder actually happened in real life. Of course, he's freaked out, tries to get a hold, you get some great mid 90s technology here, tries to dial up the, on a super high tech computer, this company called 1-800 Fear, of which he like connected with this modem to play this game, and ends up inviting this entity called the Trickster, who's kind of this bizarre cyber demon into his home, and this demon informs him that he has to finish playing the game. And the trickster keeps on showing up throughout the movie, um, terrorizing him, freaking him out, and uh, being the devil on his shoulder, telling him to keep going, basically, while Edward Furlong's trying to avoid a detective who's getting on his trail, played by Frank Langella, who I am shocked at this point, mid '90s, they got Frank Langella to be in a movie called Brain Scan, but hey, he's great in it. And so you have to see, you get to see Edward Furlong, how he's going to make it out of this, and you get to see a lot of very entertaining interactions with the trickster. The trickster just steals every scene he is in this movie. I think he is such a fun character. I love his dialogue. I love his body language, his look, and the way he's played. He really makes this movie, and it's a shame. I wouldn't mind seeing a Brain Scan too.
Yeah.
I think there could have been a really good one.
I think that's my biggest complaint is though he's in it. I wouldn't say a lot, but I mean he's in it. But I still feel like he's shockingly underused in the movie.
He is. He should have been. He should have been in here more, being the best part. Even though I agree with you. I don't think Edward Furlong was ever the greatest actor. He wasn't the high point of T2. Um, I think he was just right for this role, this angsty metalhead horror-loving teenager, and he's very believable. His reactions to things believable. He crushed on the girl next door and caught in this crazy situation. Uh, Although I will say he was remarkably unfazed by this computer demon that just shows up in his bedroom.
Well, he had a number. I mean, probably because he was just in constant awe of being one of those '90s, early 2000s movies that where, as a teenage boy in suburbia, like middle income suburbia, you have the coolest possible room ever in the history of bedrooms. And I say that as somebody who, by the end of moving out of my parents' house, had acquired quite a cool bedroom. But
Oh, definitely.
the one thing I never had that all these movies told me I should have had was just a really kick ass chair. Whether it was like the gaming chair he has in this, the like a barber's chair from like Fright Night, like just a really cool chair.
Yes.
And a neighbor
Your
that I could
bedroom.
videotape as she undressed every night.
Let's be honest. We would have never left your bedroom. We would have been staring out the window constantly if that had been the case back in the day.
Yep.
Uh,
I was just surrounded by old men, and you don't want to videotape them.
yeah. No thanks, Bill Ball and your demon corgis from hell. You have some asshole neighbors, man.
So
I
what's weird? So I was looking up stuff about this movie. It's so weird. Is this movie? It's written. I definitely can feel it because it has a lot of. It's not nearly. It's not, especially when you think of like the time it's coming out. Freddy Krueger is very campy. Like this is prime. Like this is like right before New Nightmare. We're still like Freddy's dead. Freddy Krueger. And this movie has a kind of a little bit of a mean streak in it, and it's actually because it's written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who would go on and just a year or two later to do, of course, Seven and Sleepy Hollow and 8 millimeter. Um,
I can.
and
I didn't know that. I can see the imprint on this movie because it's fun. It's goofy, but it's also morbid and it's pretty grim at times without
um,
being as grim as the movie Arcade.
yeah, and then the director of this made a movie that I definitely, we talked about doing older movies. Is a movie that I definitely at some point we should talk about, either as Death Wish knockoffs or something. But he did the movie Rolling Thunder,
Oh yes.
the one armed Death Wish movie.
Yeah, man. We get it. We get into the Vietnam vets getting revenge genre, and oh, you would never run out of material with that genre. Holy shit!
But no,
To the
I was blown away by how much I really dug this movie. Like I see what now why it kind of has the cult following it does, because it definitely feels super '90s, but also has a lot of fun with it.
It does. And it manages to deal with like the kid caught in a situation and gruesome murder, but still be fun and watchable. It's about 90 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. You're interested to see what happens, and it does leave it open for a sequel, which unfortunately never came. But if anybody in 2025 wants to make a brain scan sequel, I would still watch it. I don't think the Trickster would have become the icon on the level of Freddy, but I agree with you. This has to be one of the best Freddy knockoffs, but manages to be terrifying and creepy, but also funny and entertaining at the same time. Finding that balance was something that was really tough for other films to pull off, but it does with this. I This is a little gem of a horror movie from the '90s.
And just to give him his flowers. Number one is my favorite line of this whole movie. It's Edward Furlong. Just when he's in the principal's office after the principal breaks up horror movie club, which is like if they're you allow them to have horror movie club, you can't get mad when they watch horror movies in horror movie club. But when he's like, "And what movie were you watching?" and he's like, "Oh, it's called Death, 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 Death," and then she's like, "Death, Death, Death, Death." There's a beat, and then Edward Furlong goes, "Part 2." Also, I know I gave him a hard time for his other stuff. I also forgot I do love him, like unironically love him in Pet Cemetery too, because that movie is cuckoo bananas. But that movie is talk about a '90s just stupid fun horror movie. Um, but yeah, I was blown away by how much fun this movie was, and yeah, I kind of sad we never got more Trickster.
It is a shame. I got to step away for a minute. I'll be right back. We'll move on to
Yeah,
the next one.
I will jump in here and see what is going on in the chat. Um, Call of Doomslayer. Yes. What's so funny is how difficult some of these movies were to find. Uh, Especially think again, and it's they don't sponsor us. Um, but think if you are into like weird, obscure genre movies that you can't find on Netflix or HBO Max, thank God for Tubi. I mean, yeah, you gotta sit through them commercials, but um, so many like this was on Tubi. um, a movie we're getting ready to talk about here in a little bit was on Tubi. Like, they're doing the Lord's work over there and showing you and finding weird movies that you can't stream anywhere, and probably for good reason. There's a movie still that Nick and I watched when he was down that we really just didn't have the time to talk about, but that was insane. Champagne and Bullets that was streaming on Tubi. It's again, I can't say enough good things about it. And earlier I mentioned Bring Her Back. If you want to hear my spoiler-free thoughts on the new movie, make sure you are subscribed to YouTube so you can see that review when it goes up tomorrow. That is all that's going on in the chat. So let's jump over to the next movie from 1995, Virtuosity. Um, this is also funny enough from the same director as the Lawnmower Man. Brett Leonard was really just into virtual reality. Like that was he was going to be the voice of this movement. Um, and this movie is talking about a who's cast. I mean, just the names I've written down. You have Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe, Kelly Lynch, William Fichtner, William Forsythe, Louise Fletcher, Kevin J. O'Connor, the film debut of Kaylee Cuoco, the girl from the
Oh, that is her.
yeah.
Wow.
So watching Virtuosity, and I remember watching this a few times, and even at one point, it's up on our Patreon. Uh, when we were doing our Amber and I were doing our podcast, we did an episode over Virtuosity. Um, and this movie is about Denzel Washington as a former police officer who's been put in jail. Um, and the way to take time off his sentence is he has to help with this virtual reality world where, for whatever reason, we thought it was a good idea to take all the worst elements of serial killers, including the serial killer that Denzel Washington is in prison for murdering after that serial killer murdered his family. putting them all into one person who is Russell Crowe doing his best. I'm Jim Carrey and I'm the Joker in this movie. Honestly, watching it, I was just like, it's Jim Carrey. It's Russell Crowe's audition for The Mask. um, this what's so weird about this movie, and like we'll get into it stuff, is this is the same time you have this cast, you have um everything you could want with like the super over the top villain. You have the virtual reality stuff. You have him coming out into the real world. He's doing all these things, and I want to ask you, what keeps this movie from being on that same level as something like Demolition Man? Because I feel like it is nowhere near has the cult following that something like that does, where you kind of feel everything on paper says it should.
I don't think it's as fun as Demolition Man. Uh, I don't think you have as good. You don't have as much in the way of a good supporting character as Demolition Man. And this movie takes itself more seriously than Demolition Man did,
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
to its detriment at times, because this movie's kind of tonally all over the place.
Yeah,
But
Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe are in two very different movies.
they are almost like Russell Crowe's playing Sid 6.7. He's this combination of like 180 personalities of 180 serial killers, mass murderers, and dictators and evil people. Uh, I mean, you got Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, Hitler, all sorts of them that went into making this super AI simulation that is good for they're working on training and whatnot with it, like so they can better understand the criminal mind. And due to a disgruntled scientist who named Daryl, who's just a super hateable character in this movie, but in the right way. He gets loose in the real world in this kind of nanotech, self-regenerating android body, which I like. Pretty cool design, and they make it actually kind of flesh out the technology as to how it's 6.7s in the real world. But of course, then he has all of these personalities in him, including the personality of the killer who murdered Denzel Washington's family. He sets about terrorizing Denzel Washington and taunting him. Uh, Denzel Washington plays this movie incredibly straight. Russell Crowe is the cyborg Joker in this movie, down to having a purple suit for a lot of the movie. He's this gleeful psychopath that just loves murder and mayhem and terrorizing it. But he has this like desire to be pursued so much by Denzel Washington's character. So much. It dictates a lot of his motives and whatnot and his actions throughout the movie. Um, but it's jarring as they switch back and forth between Denzel Washington, like, my wife and daughter are dead. I've been in prison. I've accidentally killed people. All this death and destruction's around me. I'm missing an arm. I have all this trauma. And then Russell Crowe comes running in, doing a naked knife dance and making people scream so he can do a techno remix of their screams. You're like, oh, that's horrifying, and oh, that's okay. What is Russell Crowe doing?
It's kind of funny too because I feel like the same thing kind of happens in the movie Ricochet, which is another kind of fun Denzel Washington movie where he is playing the movie one way and John Lithgow as the villain is playing it very different. Only I feel like that movie has a lot more tonal stability. The other problem with this movie, I think, is like you said, it. When does this movie take place? Because at least with Demolition Man, we are given a clear look at this world. We know what's going on, and in this movie, it's like everything. It's just 1995, and then they are like, "Oh, he has a metal arm." that we're not gonna bother using until the end of the movie, where he like pulls a phone cord out of his sleeve, like you're pulling guts out of a shirt in a cheap zombie movie, and then the Bop It Simon Says futuristic mixing table at this nightclub. Like it, this movie does nothing to kind of set up the world it takes place in, and then the ending is so goofy and very anticlimactic.
It is, and I would say that's one thing Demolition Man did a lot better. The world building in Demolition Man is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Virtuosities, they don't really flesh it out. Is it the future? Is it what's the deal? Um, you get the feeling it's kind of the future, but a lot of it seems like slightly upgraded 1995. Um, Denzel and Russell Crowe are in two very different movies, but they're both acting their asses off in both of their roles. They did the best they possibly could because Denzel Washington playing a emotionally complex character with a lot of trauma, dealing with a lot of things that happened in the past. He does wonderfully. I mean, he had already won an Academy Award for Glory at this point. It's kind of one of those movies, sort of like Till Dawn was with Patrick Swayze. How did they talk Denzel Washington into doing this movie in the mid '90s? He's like, I've done Glory, Philadelphia, and Malcolm X, and now I'm gonna go chase a really goofy Russell Crowe in Virtuosity.
That
There's
bathroom
a
isn't gonna regrat itself.
there's got to be a story there. This movie's kind of a mess. It's goofy. It's fun in part. Russell Crowe is having fun in the role, just this gleeful psychopath. I'll say this: uh, the visuals look dated, but they're really not bad for being 30 years old. Like the scenes were so when Sid takes damage, he has to regenerate. He can regenerate by using he like absorbs glass and regenerates his body. There's some really cool scenes where you see him getting injured and having to regenerate. I think they work pretty well.
And I like the
Not
the
enough to really
practical
say.
effects when it happens, like the scene toward the end where he like goes through all the glass, and he's just glassed up everywhere. I think he looks fantastic.
There's some good acting, some great visuals. This movie, The Mess, that didn't really know what it was trying to do. Uh, it, it's a shame. You feel like they were on the track to make a pretty decent movie because you see some of its peers at the time. It did it a lot more successfully. It doesn't quite work. However, got to give this movie credit for having one of the coolest video store gimmicks I remember. 2001 video, they had this big cardboard stand up of Virtuosity, and it had this hand pad on it. You put your hand on there, and the pad changed colors because it's like reacted to body heat. When I was 10 years old, that absolutely blew my mind. It was so memorable. A lot more memorable than the actual movie was,
100%.
unfortunately.
And what's so funny is of all these movies, that is the one that has gotten like the biggest like red carpet rolled out for it physically. I actually have it on the way, but I haven't received it yet. Vinegar Syndrome did like this huge, fancy box set of it. I'm like, for Virtuosity, we couldn't do that for Brain Scan or honestly the movie we're getting ready to talk about. This next movie needs something like that because I will tell you right now, flat out, the next movie we're going to talk about, 1995's Virtual Assassin, aka Cyberjack, is my favorite of the lot. Uh, this is totally a movie club movie, um, and it is an absolute blast. So yeah, 1995's. There's nothing better for quality than when you see the title of the movie, you click play, and are giving a completely different title. It's one of my favorite things for like so bad it's good movies. uh, Directed by Robert Lee, who this is only his real big movie. He went on to be Uwe Boll's second unit director.
That's
So
a
he like really failed upward. Um, and this is essentially a mid '90s internet virtual reality Die Hard knockoff. But
it is.
good God, was it great! Um, Starring the American Ninja himself, Michael Dudikoff, Brian James, wearing the same makeup I'm pretty sure he wears at Nightmare at Noon. Um, you, it's I love this movie. It was so much fun. And I even said to you last night, like watching this movie, having seen few of the American Ninjas, Avenging Force, which is a movie that we should talk about at some point. Uh, it really is a shame that Michael Dudikoff did not have the action star career um, that he should have had. I mean, he was primed. He was primed. He was going to be Cannon's golden boy, and for whatever reason, they would not get off the Chuck Norris and Charlie Bronson train and give Dudikoff his time to shine. Because he is, I love he. This movie is dumb, and you know that he knows
Yes, it
it's
is.
dumb. You know that he knows it's dumb, and he's just playing. He's an ex-cop alcoholic who's a character you've seen. Like I could pick up a penny and throw it and hit 1,000 movies with that character. Now, some of them played by probably Chuck Norris and Charlie Bronson, but he has such a charisma that he's so likable, even in this movie. I guess I'll turn it over to you, but I just could not. I was sitting there watching it, just being like, I'm having so much fun right now. This movie's so dumb, but I'm having so much fun. What did you think of Virtual Assassin?
Well, you're not wrong. It is a hardcore Die Hard ripoff. You know, this cop played by Michael Dudikoff, whose name is Nick. You know, his partner is killed by the villain by Byron James, and he goes in a tailspin and becomes a degenerate gambling alcoholic and becomes a janitor at this corporation that's making this self-aware virus that Byron James and his jolly the okay Byron James's gang is the most random assortment of characters, one of the most random assortments I've seen in a movie. It's like you have the George Michael lookalike, the lady wearing like the metal corset with like Madonna boobs, a Jamaican
Timu's
guy who
Grace
talks about
Jones.
yes, Dr. Dre Drones. The Jamaican guy talks about smoking weed a lot. This guy who I just listed as stereotypical Texan, and Byron James in his wild bleached hair that just is fantastic in this movie.
He's dressed like the Undertaker, and he has a Golden Girls girl like haircut. Like it is insane. Um,
It,
and yeah, and then you have like the weird blonde guy who looks like a Mad Max knockoff, and the cowboy he's like for real fucking wearing chaps. Like he has the full
yes,
on cowboy. Like he stepped out of the rodeo into this heist, and it has this science set that has it's a science lab in a skyscraper that has the biggest basement in the history of basements, and it's the same kind of like low budget science set you'd see in something like Carnosaur or Project Metal Beast or Dead Heat. Just like this inside, like they don't. Nobody does like cheap, low budget science labs like the mid '90s did, and I miss that.
you've seen him many times. It's a great setting for this kind of action movie. There's the ventilation system Michael Dudikoff goes through and trying to get, and of course, he's locked in the building with these criminals pulling off this heist, and of course he has to step up and use his cop skills and defeat them and get the drop on it's Die Hard. It's absolutely Die Hard. It's cheesy 90's cyberpunk Die Hard, but at least it has fun with it. This one really goes for it with just trying to have be a fun, goofy action movie. Uh, it is not a serious affair in the slightest. But if they tried to play it very straight, it wouldn't have worked as well. It it's not a great movie. It's low rent. A lot of the acting is not great. But if you go in expecting a cheesy Die Hard knockoff, you won't be disappointed. Some of the sets are cool. Some of the tech in the movie's cool. Like there's laser cannons on the outside of this lab that come into play. Um, One piece of tech that I thought was really cool in this movie was the Cyclops drone. The cops send this drone into the building, and I was like, that's actually a really cool practical effects creation. It has like, it actually seems somewhat realistic. I like those kind of touches of movies with tech and weaponry, and they threw some interesting ones in here.
And it's operated by this weird German guy who's dressed like Dieter from Saturday Night Live. Um, and then yeah, even at the point to where there's a system that they use. Speaking of, somebody should have sued somebody, Disney. But it's just called Skynet.
Flat out called Skynet. I was like, how did they avoid getting sued into oblivion calling their computer program Skynet? Really?
And you have the Die Hard thing going on. You have the computer stuff because they are there to steal a computer virus that then Brian James injects into himself, and so he becomes like a computer lord. But then there's all this subplot about this baseball game that's happening. And there's like, man, we got to get some rando nudity in here. So there's a time of the movie where Michael Dudikoff's in like the holodeck watching this bosomy woman do a belly dance for no other reason than just to get some TNA in here. Oh
Michael
man,
Michael Michael Dudikoff is such a gambling addict that he stops in the middle of this like terrorist attack to listen to the radio loudly to the baseball game. He's just like, man, gotta clear my spread, and he will like stop me like, okay, gotta take a break and see how the ball game's going. It adds to the affairs. It's funny.
and then like I said, Brian James is one of those guys that no matter the level of movie, he's gonna give you 150%. It may be the weirdest 150%. I'm looking at you, House 3, aka the horror show or whatever it's called. Um,
Yes.
but good God, is he fun in this movie? And again, he just looks so goofy. And then he gets superpowers at the end, toward the end of the movie.
Yes.
I don't think it's not a canon movie, but it should have been a canon movie. It
It looks
feels,
like a canon movie. Also, I would say, Byron James' look in this movie reminds me of Stacy Keach's look in Class of 1999. Same kind of weird look.
yeah.
Byron James, super hammy in this movie. I enjoyed it. It's not high art, but it's fun.
I love the one. I thought of you instantly when the opening when you have the car chase, and then they all get out, and they all have like these futuristic like guns because it's clearly just a handgun with like some shit taped to the top of it.
It is.
But then, like, of course, Dudikoff pulls out this freaking Magnum, and I was just like, "Yeah, Dudikoff would use that gun." But again, like,
Ableist.
I just wish there was more. I just wish this guy had been a bigger action star because all the movies I've seen him in are a blast. Like I said, if you've never seen Avenging Force, it is incredible. It's him and the giant black guy that he's in American Ninja with, and they fight this weird group of like eyes wide shut neo Nazis in the bayou, and it's the leader of that group. They're called the Pandamarin or something, but it's the old teacher from class of 1999 as the leader. So
I
and
and
they
Avenging
all
Force.
wear like yeah they all wear masks like goofy eyes wide shut mask and talk about how great it is to live in the swamp and be white. It's nuts.
And Avenging Force, which is sort of a sequel to the Chuck Norris movie Invasion USA. Or it's the same character, Matt Hunter. So
Yeah.
I need to get around to watching it.
And then after that, we have our we jump take quite a jump in years. We jump to 1999, and kind of where this genre kind of ended because uh, we were kind of given the best version of it. Not the movie we're going to talk about. No, unfortunately, the movie we're going to talk about came out. I wrote it down because I couldn't remember if it was right before or right after. So our last movie, The 13th Floor, came out on May 28th, 1999, which is unfortunate timing because on March 31st, 1999, a little independent film called The Matrix came out and totally killed, basically put this genre to bed. Um, as far as what is real and virtual reality and things like that. Uh, Regardless of the sequels, rightfully so. But the 13th Floor was kind of that last, um, a real like. Oh no, UHF came out the same summer as Indiana Jones 3 and Ghostbusters 2 and Batman and all this stuff. Uh, I'm very curious to see what you thought about this movie.
Um, I've seen the 13th Floor, but it had been a long time. We kind of, we got shit. That I'm so bad with names here. Craig Bierko, who was one of those guys you saw him a lot in the 90's. He never quite made it. This is one of his few like starring roles he had, and it's about this virtual reality. These guys are doing this research into VR in this virtual world where the characters are extremely lifelike. They're trying to uncover this murder mystery as well and looking for clues inside this virtual world, and it gets kind of mind bending. Gretchen Mol, who is incredibly attractive in my book, and still she's in her mid 50s and still not. I've never been one for blondes, but Gretchen Mol has always done it for me. She's of course flipping adorable in this movie. You also got Vincent D'Onofrio in this movie as well. Um,
He brings back his Adventures in Babysitting Thor haircut.
so you have this kind of mystery and at times noir with a lot of the virtual reality and kind of what's real and what's not thrown in there. Um, Trying to think. This is the last movie I watched. I actually finished watching it today. It is unfortunate, in my opinion, that it came up against the Matrix, not completely buried. Because I think it's not the best movie. It's not the most memorable movie. I think it's a decent movie that deals with the concepts of reality pretty well, and actually has some pretty decent performances. Vincent D'Onofrio, that dude is great in everything he's in. Greg Bierko, he's okay. Gretchen Mol's great. I because you have the modern day, then you have inside this virtual world, it's like the 1930s and 40s in it. You have this cool kind of period piece where these people are interacting with these fictional characters in this virtual world, or are they? But it makes for a really neat setting. You got a lot of variety in the settings in this movie. I think it was right, not great, but pretty. I think it was a fairly decent movie. That's better than its reputation suggests of just getting absolutely buried. There's a few cool scenes in here, which where they find the so-called end of the world that I think are very memorable. What do you think?
Yeah. So this is another one. Like I don't know how many times we saw that box cover growing up. It was just never one that I ever watched. Um, yeah, I think not only did its timing kind of kill this movie, I think because of what the Matrix became, uh, the studio kind of set this movie up for failure. Because if you go and watch that
It
trailer,
did.
it is so much like, oh baby, if you love the Matrix, you're gonna love the 13th floor. And honestly, I feel like it's more in line. It's not to me. It ties less to the Matrix. It to me it feels like a nice companion piece on a lesser level, but still to something more like Dark City.
Yes.
It's very sci-fi heavy. Not a lot of action. We're really world building. The stuff in the 30s I think is great. Um, there are some twists toward the end that I actually kind of enjoyed. A lot more than I would have thought I would. Um,
Yes.
yeah, the actor Craig. Like I knew him. I did not know him from this. I knew him. He popped up for me the first time in Scary Movie 3, where it's doing the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, and he plays the Tom Cruise character. So he was always a comedy guy for me. Um, but I really
My
enjoyed
my
him in this.
my first experience, my first memory of him is actually plays one of the villains in The Long
He's
Kiss
the main villain in
Goodnight.
Long Kiss Goodnight too. Yeah. Um, I guess he did a lot of his like most of his work was in as villains and stuff. But again, it's just I think timing was bad on this movie. The marketing was bad on this movie. I mean, it kind of works, but I don't know the 13th floor is really a great title for something like this. When I hear the 13th floor, number one, I think instantly think it's a horror movie.
There is a horror movie called The 13th
That
Floor.
has to
There
do
is
with
one.
yeah, that has to do with like because it's a serial killer who's like tracks this something. It has to do with computers too, I think. Um,
It's I think it's a haunted building movie. I I saw it a long time ago. It's or it has a very similar title.
yeah,
That's why I've always got it confused with
I
that
think
one.
it's
I believe
called
it's from
the
the 80s.
13th floor, and this one is 13th floor.
Yes,
Um,
completely different.
but yeah, like I think just all around, unfortunately, the packaging in this movie really set it up for failure. Because I think if all that perfect storm doesn't happen, I think you would have a movie. Like I said, it's I'm not comparing it at all to like what Dark City was, but I feel like you would have a little more of this movie would have a little more of that kind of following. Which I don't even know. I don't know if this movie does have that much of a following. This of all the movies we watched, this was the hardest one to find. Um, it's not streaming anywhere. It's not. You can get it like a bare bones DVD. That's way too expensive for for a movie like this. Certainly not anything more than that. Which is kind of sad because I think this movie, I think if it reappraise it now after you take it away from the time it came out, and by I just mean so close to the Matrix, I think it's a really good sci-fi movie.
It is. This virtual reality noir style plot works. You're right. It's not action packed, but it's interesting, and you really want to see where it will go. It's got some good characters, some really good world building, and some twists that you kind of start picking up on it, but I think are well done. Um, the movie shouldn't be as hard to find as it is. It's not on the level of The Matrix. It's not even on the level of Dark City,
Mm-mm.
but it deserves to be remembered and watched and appreciated for just how well made and polished it is. I was really glad to go back and revisit this because I was that scene at the end of the world, so to speak, always really stuck with me when I watched it long ago. And yeah, this was a pleasant one to go back to and watch again. I think they had some high hopes for it. They put some money into this movie, to the visuals, to the cinematography. One thing watching these movies from the 90's, the cinematography of that decade is just stellar.
Yeah.
Even some of the cheaper movies, some of the not as great movies, had stunning cinematography. And man, I wish we hadn't gotten away from that. And I did mention the virtuosity. I missed the big action set pieces made with practical effects. There was some magic with how they did things in the '90s before it was all CGI, even though these movies had a lot of it that we've just gotten away from. The '90s is an underrated decade for movies, and but the 13th Floor I feel should be rediscovered at some point.
I hope
There's
so.
enough stars in it that you think at some point it'll get its dues. It should. It's pretty solid.
Yeah. No, I agree. I hope that it does because yeah, this was the last one for me too, and it was an absolute surprise by how much I again had overpassed it so often. And then again, it's another one of those movies that had we watched it in high school, I don't know if I'd have been as much into it as I am now.
No.
But I am glad to have discovered it later, and hopefully it does get its due. Um, yeah, I
There
really
wasn't there wasn't enough action or boobs in this movie to hold our attention when we were teenagers. So
that's true. Speaking of none of that, so that is, and there are some other more movies we could talk about, but I feel like we've kind of covered all the genres of this subgenre pretty handsomely. Some good, some bad, some fun, some dumb. Um, but man, like you said, kind of tying a bow around it is no matter. It's just so weird that the idea of what we all now can't live without we thought was going to be the death of us 30 years ago.
we were genuinely terrified at the possibilities of this technology. And let's be real, with our reliance on technology and the rise of AI, there's some of these concepts seem like they have a little morsel of truth to them now.
Yep.
Um, you would say that Cyberjack, aka Virtual Assassin, is your favorite?
I think so. I had the most fun watching it. It's not the best of these movies. I was blown away by two of them really, but of the ones we watched, I this was the one I had the most. It was the one I had the most fun with.
I say if you're gonna watch any of these, Brain Scan, I think is very much worth a watch. You want some cheesy Die Hard esque fun, watch Virtual Assassin. Uh, if you want an underrated sci-fi movie, watch 13th Floor. Um, Arcade is a hard pass. Virtuosity,
Just watch
not gonna
Demolition
watch
Man.
it again. Yeah, absolutely. Demolition Man's far better. And the Lawnmower Man, okay. If you, it's dated, but it's all right. So I
It
had fun
doesn't
with it.
deserve the hate it gets. I don't think it
It
does.
really doesn't. And bravo, Jeff Fahey. He could have. He got in a lot of movies. I think he should have gotten more mainstream roles than he did. But I was reminded watching all these movies a lot how much talent there was in the '90s with acting, with directing, with cinematography, with some pretty stellar scores in here too.
Yeah.
So I this was a fun one.
Yeah, absolute blast. Now, I will tell you this. Next month it's going to be a shorter, well, I won't say it's a shorter because we'll deep dive, but we're doing far less movies. In fact, half the movies. We're only going to be talking about 3 movies next month. But oh man, I am, speaking of excited, because we're talking about a movie that you and I have a very personal connection with. It's sequel that I surprisingly I think I've only seen the one time, and what may be my most anticipated movie of the year because we are going to be talking about the 28 days, months, years later franchise. So we're going to be covering both 28 days later, 28 weeks later. Sadly, we never got the 28 months later, but we are getting 28 years later starting next month. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun to deep dive into.
You and I have a very personal connection to 28 Days Later. We'll talk about our experience going to see that. I'm really looking forward to that. I never thought, I was waiting in anticipation for 28 months later. It never happened. I am so excited we're getting 28 years later. I am very optimistic. 28 weeks later did happen. It was 28 months later that didn't happen.
Yeah, again, I haven't seen. I remember 28 Weeks Later came out, and I watched it, and then I haven't thought of it a day since. But I feel like it's mostly liked, so I'll be curious to revisit that one. But yeah, I'm super pumped to deep dive into those movies. But we are actively taking an easier road for June because July. I'll just go ahead and spoil it now. July is the month of the Superman. So not only will we be reviewing the brand new version of Superman, we're also going to review and maybe even rank all of the Superman movies. So I don't know, dust off your red boots and your Gene Hackman wigs and throw on that John Williams score, baby. And it's going to be a lot of fun then, too. So the next 2 months are going to be a lot of fun here at our Twitch channel. And hopefully by then, we'll be able to do this on YouTube as well. But until then, we do have our weekly YouTube reviews that do go up. And as I said before, tomorrow will be my spoiler-free review of Bring Her Back, the brothers' follow-up to Talk to Me. And then after that, I don't know. I do have a review up from the new Mission Impossible, as well as Clown in a Cornfield. Um, and of course, Nick and I did our big review for Sinners, which actually did pretty good. So all those reviews you can watch them over and over again. Just play them on loop constantly. Plus our past lives. Twitch doesn't keep them up after a couple of months. All those lives are archived over there, including our lives that we did pre-YouTube, pre-Twitch. Um, I don't know that I have them all unlocked yet because I'm still working on some, but a majority of our Facebook lives that we did years ago are over there on a playlist that is the Movie Club Archive. So if you um, are interested in what we thought the best movies of like 2022 were, or our favorite Nick Cage movies, or the scariest movies at the time, go check those videos out. I got here. So we had a late pop up in here. How do you decide what format you are going to see these movies in? Standard, IMAX, 3D, RPX? I will tell you, for me personally, our theater here in the town I live in, which is Western Oklahoma, has 4 screens, and so one of the screens they still show in 3D, even though I don't know that 3D movies are out anymore. As far as IMAX or like Dolby, those screens would be up at Quail Springs Mall, which is like an hour and a half away from me. So usually I'm watching a standard screening of a movie, unless for big things like if I pre 2020, I would go see a lot of movies in the Dolby and IMAX. Uh, when AMC A list was a big deal for me because I could do 3 showings in a day. Now that most theaters, at least around here, don't have a morning screening and they rarely do a like late show, I'm kind of stuck seeing what I can see, especially here because even for something like Bring Her Back, or to see that, I had to drive 45 minutes to see it at a slightly bigger theater than the one here in our podunk little town. It may be a little easier for you up there in the bustling
Oh,
streets of Spokane.
yeah, in Spokane, you live in a much bigger area, so we have several movie theaters. I live a mile away from the Regal Cinemas. I have the Regal Cinemas pass. I'm able to go quite a bit. If it is available in 3D, I'm a sucker for 3D, and I always go see it in 3D. Um, I've been truly impressed by some movies like Inside Out 2 in 3D. You wouldn't think it'd been that great. It was a really great experience in 3D. Certain movies, like I went to go see Civil War. I can't remember if it was an IMAX or Dolby, greatly enhanced the experience. When Superman comes out, I'm going to pay the money to see it in IMAX. Dune and Dune 2, I paid the money to see it in IMAX. If it's something that's really going to shake the foundations with some great sound, Dolby's the way to go. Something that's visually great, I'll go for IMAX. Most of the time, I just see it in a normal format unless it is offered at 3D at my local Regals because I'm lazy and it's close to my house. But for special things, I will definitely make the trip downtown to the AMC to see it on the bigger screen. Like seeing the Batman on Dolby, especially during the car chase scenes, was fantastic. Love going to the theater, but if it's something that's truly enhanced, or something filmed for IMAX, or something that sounds just wild, like Civil War, for example, will make the trip to the AMC. It really
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah, our closest AMC is Yukon, which is usually if I want to see anything that's not, I want to say big enough, but like our theater here held on to Minecraft for like a month and a half, almost 2 months. And I remember very famously, we ran The Sound of Freedom for like nearly 4 months here.
Holy,
Yeah, so it's there, and there's only 4 screens. Um, so it's a real like I was shocked to. I wasn't shocked that they got Mission Impossible, but let's just say the opening weekend of Mission Impossible, Amber and I went. Our theater has 4 screens, two decent sized and two smaller screens. Mission Impossible was not on the biggest screen in the theater.
oh man, that's a shame.
Yeah. So, and then as far as 3D movies, neither Amber or Ashton can take in 3D movies. They don't get the 3D effect. So it would just be me, and I hate wearing. I wear glasses, so wearing glasses over my glasses sucks. Although I will admit, for a movie that probably isn't good at all in retrospect, because I haven't seen it since, but was an absolutely amazing theatrical experience, is when you and I went and watched Sin City, A Dame to Kill For in 3D.
Yes, we were one of the few people who cared at all about going to see the latest Sin City sequel, but loved watching it in 3D. Yeah, I'm a sucker for 3D. And yes, for those who don't know, this is my dog Falcor. He likes popping in and making a cameo from time to time.
Hey man, it jumps up viewership tremendously, so I'm down for it.
Yes, come see me and my cute dog.
Catrick is somewhere being a dick, so that's what he does. But yeah, so next month, be prepared to finally settle the argument. Are they zombies? Because we were talking about the 28 Days Later franchise, and then join us over at our YouTube. We've got plenty of stuff to check out there, and again, we're so close. We are, I think, 10 away from being able to dual stream, which sounds probably way cooler than the nightmare headache it will probably be to figure out how to do it. But it'll still be fun, so make sure you are liking and doing all the things you're supposed to do when it comes to videos on the internet. But until then, this has been a lot of fun.
It has. Thank you all for joining us. We deeply appreciate it. We'll see you all next time. Bye,
All right.
pal.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Bye.